tell me a little bit about you and your position.
Well, I'm Peggy Terhune, and I'm the president and CEO of Monarch, and have been there since 1995. Monarch is a very large service provider, and we provide services to people with mental health issues, folks with intellectual and developmental disabilities, and people with substance abuse issues. And we do all sorts of services, wide array of services, because our thought is that, first of all, one size doesn't fit all. Second of all, people need to be able to reach their dreams, not what I think they should do, but what they want in their life. So that's kind of the focus of Monarch. I have a bunch of degrees. My first degree was a bachelor's in occupational therapy, and then I got an MBA and a PhD from UNCG. And I'm married, and I have 7 children. The last 2 we adopted from the DSS foster care system. And among my children, I have a child with intellectual and developmental disabilities that I adopted, and a child with mental illness, and one that has dealt with substance use issues. So it's very interesting to see the whole picture. My husband and I foster, and we're currently therapeutic foster parents for teenagers with mental illness.
Can you explain what Medicaid reform means?
Yes, I can. First, though, you need to understand what Medicaid is, because many people don't really understand what it is. But it's a funding source for people with disabilities and women with children, and for children that need additional help. It pays for physical health care, like if you go to the doctor, but it can also pay for other things. It can pay for counseling, it can pay for the expenses for you to live in a group home, it can pay all kinds of different things, depending on what you need it for. Medicaid is a huge part of our state budget. The only bigger area of our budget is education. So in North Carolina, we spend a lot of money on these services for folks. And so we're always trying to figure out, how can we serve more people with the same amount of money at a better level of quality, so people really get what they need, and more people get what they need. And so we're always in North Carolina trying to figure that out. So Medicaid reform is about trying to figure that out. How can we meet everybody's needs, but not spend a whole lot more money than we're spending now, because we just don't have more money? And how can we help people get what they need?
How is North Carolina approaching Medicaid reform?
So all that Medicaid money that we just talked about, there's a lot of it, and the people that are responsible for that is our legislature. Every year they have to have a budget for that year, and in that budget they figure out how much money they're going to spend and where they're going to spend it. Like, do they need to fix roads, or do they need to send more money to schools, or do they need to cover folks that need services? And so they have to make those very difficult decisions, which is not easy, I'm sure. So they really wanted to make sure that they knew when they budgeted that they were spending the right amount of money. So they decided to research the whole concept of Medicaid and how other states used Medicaid, because they wanted to serve more people, but they knew they didn't have more money. So they looked at some other states and decided some folks had it down and were doing a better job with Medicaid, or a different job, I should say. They were handling it differently, but they were getting some different outcomes too. So they decided that they were going to make a change, and they have 4 main goals. The first goal is they want to know that when they budget, that's the amount of money that we spend. They don't want to, like, if you're working on your personal budget and you have a budget that you're going to spend a certain amount of money on your housing, and you move in somewhere where it costs a lot more, you run out of money. and then you don't have that housing anymore. So in order to be able to meet all the different priorities in North Carolina, they want to be able to know, this is how much we need, this is how much we spend. And so that's really important to them. They also want to know that the money that they're spending is spent the right way, that they're not wasting money, that they're not giving money to people that aren't doing what they're supposed to do. So that's accountability, and that's really important to them too. Another thing that's really important to them is to balance. They don't want to just focus on money. They don't want to just focus on quality. They don't want to just focus on people being satisfied. They want to focus on all three, which is pretty cool. So they wanted their Medicaid system to reflect those. They also want effective administration. And what that's all about is, think about Monarch and two other providers. We both have CEOs, we both have finance directors, we both have all these different kinds of things. And we need those to manage our organization. When it comes to government, though, the question is, how much do you need? For example, we have 100 DSS departments. They all have a director, staff. Would it be more efficient if they weren't all single county? And so that's the kind of decision making that the folks have to make. So that's why recently they announced mergers of the LME MCOs, because they think that what they can do is combine them and save money on administration. If you can save money on administration, that means you have more money to spend on people. So the whole idea there is to free up money to spend on people. So they want to make sure that they're as efficient as possible. They don't want to make people wait or not have local presence. They really want, everybody's voice to be able to be heard, but they want to be efficient. And you really have to respect that they want to drive more money to people. And then the last thing they want to do is they want to make sure that whatever they create, it can continue. We've had enough change. Everybody knows we've had enough change. We've been going through this for 15, 16 years, and with constant change. And this is one more change, but the goal is to make it better, and then not change it again, but to make it work and to make it effective. One of the things that they talk a lot about in their goals is integrated care, and that's really important. What they want is, right now, if I go to my primary care doctor and then I go to my psychiatrist, maybe my primary care doctor says, hey Peggy, you need to lose weight. My psychiatrist says, hey Peggy, you need to take this medicine, and that medicine makes me gain weight. So I have this doctor over here telling me one thing and this doctor working against it. If they work together, if they talk to each other, if they shared information, then the psychiatrist might say to me, oh Peggy, that's not the best medicine for you because it'll make you gain weight, and I know you're trying to lose weight. Let me give you this one instead. And so to integrate care means people are healthier, people get better care because everybody knows what's going on. And so that's another really big thing that's been discussed in the whole Medicaid reform that will change. That doesn't mean you can't still choose your doctor and go to the people you want to go to, but it means that they communicate a lot better, and that's really important.
What is the best way for people with disabilities to advocate during the Medicaid privatization process during the next few months and also the next few years?
That's a really important question, because the legislators are trying to do what's right and what's good, and they know what they know, and they don't know what self-advocates live with, many of them. Many people don't know someone with an intellectual disability, or they don't know what it's like to have a mental illness. So they try to plan and spend the money the right way, but they may not understand. And that's where it's so important for advocates to step in and say, this is what's important to me. I don't need all this fluffy stuff over here. I need this. And so if you don't share your story, your voice doesn't get heard, but also people don't know the problem. And so it's really, really important. Well, the first step then is to stay informed. You need to make sure you know what's happening and that you understand what's happening. This stuff is so complicated, it's very difficult for all sorts of people to understand. Should never be embarrassed. I call people all the time and say, okay, what does this part mean? What does this mean? And how do I deal with this? So it's really important to stay informed and ask questions. And when you ask questions, you can ask all sorts of people. You can ask your LME MCO staff. You could ask provider staff. You can ask family members for their opinions. You can ask your legislator to explain things. And there's all sorts of advocacy groups. There's the North Carolina Council on Developmental Disabilities. There's NAMI, North Carolina, and a number of affiliate chapters. And of course, there's the ARC of North Carolina. So there are all these different advocacy groups, and there's more. And they're always very willing to listen and help explain things to you because they're out there trying to get for you what you need, and they need to hear it too. So that's really important. I also think it's really important to tell the people that have control over the money how decisions impact your life. As a foster parent, I've seen all kinds of situations where people are making decisions about somebody else's life. And teenagers especially don't like that. Teenagers, they want to make their own decisions. But they oftentimes need some guidance with that. But it's really, really hard when people say to you, this is what's going to happen for you, and you don't have a say in it. So we believe in the saying, nothing about me without me. In other words, don't make decisions about my life unless you ask me what I think about that. So as an advocate, you need to step up because they can't possibly ask everybody in the state. You need to step up and make your voice heard. So you need to tell the LME MCO. You need to tell your legislator. You need to tell the people that create the budget and implement the budget how things impact you so that next time they can take that into account. You really need to explain that impact to your legislators. And you need to explain it not just to your state legislators, but to your county legislators, your commissioners. If you live in a city, you need to explain it to the city council folks. All those people have an impact on how things affect your life, and you want to make sure that decision makers know what the issues are. If you're being served by a provider, get involved with that provider. Tell them you want to join one of their governance committees or one of their other committees, their human rights committees or their public policy committee. Really important, but get involved. Join a group. You are so welcome, and your voice is so important to be heard. I know on our board, when a self-advocate speaks, the whole room gets really quiet, and people really want to understand what that person is saying. So people really want to hear from self-advocates, and so they need to speak up and say that.
Do you have any other tips or advice for how people with disabilities and their family members can make a difference in the system?
Yep. They need to get involved. So you need to start by doing a number of different things. One, you need to vote. It's really important because a lot of people don't vote because they think, what does my one vote matter? It matters. Hello. And so people really need to make sure they're registered to vote, and then they need to go vote. If there's legislators that don't agree with your issues and they ignore what you say, vote against them. If they're the ones that are standing up there trying to help you have the life you want to have, vote for them. Vote for the people that you believe can best help you have the life you want to have. Also, join a board or a committee or someone that's dealing with this. You can run for city council You can be on the planning board for the city. You can join all sorts of boards. Did you know you can even go to the North Carolina Council on Developmental Disabilities website, and there's an application you can download to apply for that? You can apply for the NAMI board. They're always looking for folks that have lived experience with mental illness, because the advocacy groups really want to make sure they're advocating for what people want, not for what they think. So that's really important. You can also get involved with your LME MCO by joining CFAC. That's the Consumer and Family Advisory Committee. And many people think, well, no one will listen to me, or I can't get there, I don't have transportation, or I can't afford something. Well, the CFACs will help you, and you don't need to worry about any of those things. But your voice is so important, and the CFACs try to get folks from every single county, every single type of disability. They really want good representation. And oftentimes, they can't find anybody. And you're sitting out there thinking, gee, I need to be involved, and they're thinking, I can't find anybody. So you really need to think about that. You can also get involved by working in the field. People with disabilities make awesome employees. Yes, they have their struggles, so does everybody else. We all have our struggles. But many people underestimate the ability of someone with a disability to work. And I don't think they should. I think that's a whole untapped workforce that we need to consider. So I'd suggest all those things. Volunteer. Go to your library and host a meeting for the community. Libraries usually have free rooms, and you could do that, and you could put up flyers and say, hey, everybody, I want to talk about mental health reform, and come talk to me about it. So there's all kinds of ways you can continue to advocate. But the most important thing not to do is to sit home and grumble, because that never works.